Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the MCs of GLOBSEC Forum 2025, Latika, Bourke and Rikard, Jozwiak.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 20th edition of GLOBSEC Forum here in Prague, but also to you online. My name is Rikard Jozwiak. I'm the editor of Radio Free Europe. And yes, in case you're wondering, Radio Free Europe still is alive.
And long may you live. Hear, hear. Good morning, everyone. My name's Latika Bourke. I'm a writer at large based in London for The Nightly Australia. An absolute pleasure and honour to be here back in Prague for the second edition of GLOBSEC 2025 here in Czechia.
So as always with GLOBSEC, we have a claim. And the claim this year is what you see behind me, commanding in chaos. Time for Europe to step up. Question mark, maybe?
Question mark? Why hasn't Europe already stepped up? Because the world is at a turning point. We see it every single day now on our television screens. The geopolitical upheaval, the eroding alliances, and tech disruption coming faster than ever.
So there are 4 key themes at this GLOBSEC. The first 2, unlocking Europe's geotech edge. Secondly, redefining the global order and finding perhaps a role for Europe in that order.
And we'll be looking at security in this volatile world, but also how to drive sustainable competitiveness and resilience.
But most of all, we want to hear from you. There are 3 ways of having your voice heard. First one, social media. Do hashtag GLOBSEC 2025. The second one is the traditional one. You raise your hand, you wait for a microphone, and then you ask a question. And on behalf of all moderators here, please, I repeat, a question, and a short one, please.
No long statements, guys. Okay, then we have one other option, and this requires you all right now to get involved. So if you could pull out your phones, I know they're already on silent. We have Slido, which is where you get to not only ask questions, but also answer them. I'm not seeing enough phones out. Could you please grab your phones out? Because we want you to scan this QR code up on the screen. And we want you to answer this question in one word, right?
In one word, yes. And we're going to get a word cloud, I hope.
We are. So where does Europe need to step up the most?
Come on, phones out.
Please get tapping.
One word.
It's a good time to check that you did actually put your phones on silent anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, we're seeing some good answers coming in. AI.
Action.
Action on what? All right,
Data
innovation.
exchange, industrial base, democratic transition, self-confidence.
Unity is an interesting one. Support Ukraine. I think that's a pretty overwhelming view of this room. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go up a bit.
Free market. That's interesting.
Unity, yeah, readiness.
Yeah, readiness is going to be a big theme of this
big one,
GLOBSEC.
though, isn't it?
Yeah, look, there's one outstanding answer, and I'm not surprised by that, Rikard. Defense.
No, and that's exactly the theme. Again, commanding in chaos, time for Europe to step up. And we will discuss this at 3 stages during 3 days. The first stage is this one, is the Havel stage. The second stage is next door, is the Schwarzenberg stage.
And upstairs, we'll have the Albright stage, which I'll be opening a little later on this morning.
And then there are also about 50 side events. Some of them are invitation only, some of them are open, but I've heard for those that are invitation only that if you're really kind, you wait outside the door, you knock a little bit and smile, you may be let into those as well.
Okay, but
Maybe.
don't try this tonight at Prague Castle. That's the Gala Awards ceremony dinner. You do need an invitation for that one. Have you got yours?
I sort of gave it to a cute girl in there.
It's all right. You can come tomorrow.
Can I?
Everyone's invited to the cocktail evening tomorrow night.
So the cocktail evening is tomorrow evening. It's on Shoffin Island, which is an island right in the middle of Vltava in Prague. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be cocktails. It's Friday the 13th. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing at all, because this is GLOBSEC, and it's such a wonderful event, and it's wonderful to be back here. That is enough from us for now, because it's time to bring on stage the 2 gentlemen who will do the official honours in opening GLOBSEC 2025.
It's going to be the president of Czechia, Mr. Petr, Pavel, and the president of GLOBSEC, Mr. Róbert, Vass.
But hold your applause, because we're going to take a look back at GLOBSEC's proud history.
gentlemen, please welcome the President of Czechia, Petr Pavel, and the President of GLOBSEC, Róbert Vass.
Dear President Pavel, Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends, it is my great honor to welcome you to the 20th anniversary edition of the GLOBSEC Forum. And it's great to celebrate the 2 decades of the global dialogue here in Prague. And I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to President Pavel, but also to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lipavsky, and our Czech friends for their unwavering support. And we are proud to call Prague our new home. I still remember when we established GLOBSEC 20 years ago in a small university hall in Slovakia. Back then, we dreamed of moving Central Europe from the periphery to the center of global dialogue. And today in Prague, we gather as a global community from 80 countries with the ambition to shape the vision for a new era. These 20 years have been a remarkable story of a grassroots project that has become one of the leading platforms for global dialogue. And I want to thank everyone who has been part of this journey. Colleagues, former colleagues, the board of GLOBSEC, extraordinary community that we gather in our International Advisory Board, diplomats, friends, partners, and all of you who have been supporting us for all these 20 years. Today, that dream we had 20 years ago stand fulfilled. But more importantly, it is far from finished. And we are here not to celebrate the past, but to build a future. And as Václav Havel once said, hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something is worth doing. A lot has changed in these 20 years in the world. 20 years ago, we believed Europe's path was clear, whole, free, and at peace. But Russia returned a brutal, full-scale war into our continent. Trade wars and the erosion of economic cooperation are putting immense strains on global prosperity. Trust in international institutions is faltering, and the rule-based order is under threat. We must admit the facts. The world is changing. And this period is not just a time to wait and survive. This disruption is transformative. We cannot go back to the world as it was before and go back to the business as usual. As Pope Francis said at GLOBSEC Forum 2021, from every crisis we can emerge better or worse, but never the same. And that is the moment for Europe to act. And that is the title of this year's conference, a call for action, time for Europe to step up. And let me outline 4 imperatives for European action. First, we must deliver peace in Ukraine. Ukraine is a test and a proof of concept, not just for European unity, but of whether we can offer a real alternative to raw force. And Europeans have demonstrated that we can stand up to aggression and support those who want to live in a peaceful and just world. There have been many calls for peace, but Mr. Putin simply ignores them up until now. Everyday Russian bombs level cities, destroy hospitals, kill innocent civilians. And from this stage, in the center of Europe, we repeat clearly, Mr. Putin, end this war, or history will end you. This war bears your name, and you may outrun headlines, but you will not outrun history. Peace is not Putin's to define. It is not belonging to those who bomb hospitals and children's playgrounds. It belongs to those who defend it. And together with Ukrainians, all of us and the rest of Europe need to reclaim the word peace very clearly and what it means for us. Second, we have to build Europe from within. we have to take responsibility for getting our own house in order. So in Europe, we must get serious about our defense, competitiveness, economy, strategic autonomy. At the end, the transatlantic relations was always meant to be a relationship, not a dependency. And it will only endure if Europe pulls its weight together. Third, we have to defend multilateralism, but also modernize it. Europe is the greatest success of multilateralism in history. We must prove that rule-based order is still worth fighting for. And we must lead the global initiative to rebuild the global order. Let me remind the words of the Finnish president, Alexander Stubb, from last year, from this stage, who said that basically there are three types of countries in the world. The global West, who has helped to build with the rest of the world the global rules. Then there are those powers who are challenging them, like Russia. And there are global South, who rightly demand a seat at the table. And global South countries are indispensable for the future of multilateralism. We must invite, not ignore, the global South. That is why I'm really happy and proud to welcome delegations from Africa, Latin America, Chile, Brasilia, Argentina, Middle East, UAE. We must build multilateralism with them and together with them. And fourth, we must treat technology as strategy or be left behind. The next decade will be defined not only by what we defend, but what we build. And that means mastering technologies that power modern life. That's why I'm very happy that GLOBSEC Geotech Summit, with the strong political leadership of President Pavel and under the leadership of General Allen, becomes an integral part of the GLOBSEC Forum for its second time. We will have a lot of reports that we will unveil during these few days. Let me present one more point, and that's the importance of cooperation with private sector, because 70% of critical infrastructure today is owned and operated by private sector. And the distance between public and private sector today is a strategic vulnerability. We must fix it. And that's why I'm glad that we have such a strong delegation from global tech and businesses, captains of industries here in Prague. Ladies and gentlemen, 20 years is not only a time for celebration, it is time to prepare the organization for next decades ahead. And we are strengthening GLOBSEC as a pan-European platform for global dialogue, but also as an action-oriented policy institute that brings solutions. And we have a lot of content that we prepared. We are launching several initiatives on semiconductor to assess what can be done in Europe's competitiveness. With Chris Miller, who wrote the Chip Wars, initiative on GLOBSEC on Rearm Europe, readiness index, health readiness index. And we will have a major report on critical raw materials that we've done in partnership with McKinsey on how innovation-driven approaches can help us fix the problem of the critical raw materials. I'm also delighted here to announce that we have welcomed in our team a new CEO who will help us to guide the organization in the next chapter. He's a Prague native, Daniel Brown, whom you will meet during these upcoming days. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2005 we started with hope. In 2025 we continue with responsibility. And let these 3 days be more than a dialogue. Let them be a turning point. Let us step up, let us lead, and let us build a future that others want to follow. Enjoy 2025 GLOBSEC Prague Forum, and thank you. Mr. President, I would like to invite you to deliver your keynote remarks.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all once again in Prague at this year's GLOBSEC Forum. For over 2 decades, this platform has earned its place as Central Europe's leading venue and for addressing global security challenges. I am proud that our capital is hosting for the second time, and also distinguished guests and leaders, experts who are all gathered here. I'm also pleased that for second year in a row, GLOBSEC includes the Prague Geotech Summit, a platform that connects political and high-tech leaders to discuss and protect our democracies and future prosperity. Last year, I spoke here about the need to strengthen Europe's political will, industrial capacity, and technological sovereignty, about the importance of standing with Ukraine and also of standing on our own feet as Europeans. These messages remained as relevant today as they were then, perhaps and even more so. Today, I will focus on 3 interconnected issues: new transatlantic environment, European security, and future of Ukraine. The new US administration has unsettled transatlantic relations and forced Europe to face strategic questions it cannot postpone. Ukraine continues to fight bravely for its freedom, independence, and security of all of Europe. Their determination and innovative approach serve as a source of inspiration to all of us. There are so far no signs of Russia's intentions to end their aggression. And yet, we have witnessed a troubling reluctance to clearly distinguish between the aggressor and the victim. It is time we draw the necessary conclusions from the fact that the United States' role in European security has changed and reinforce Europe's ability to respond accordingly. We must accelerate our efforts to build credible European defense capabilities, strengthen our defense industries, and take political ownership of our collective security. And please don't take me wrong, this doesn't mean to decouple from our American ally. On the contrary, engaging and maintaining intense dialogue with our partners across the Atlantic is more essential than ever. Not only with President Trump's inner circle, but with the broadest possible range of actors across all levels. This is a call for taking greater responsibility as Europeans. A call to make sure that we are capable of defending our own interests, even without active American support if necessary. The aim is not to create an alternative to NATO, but to strengthen NATO's European pillar. To succeed, this European pillar cannot remain an abstract ambition. It needs to be institutionalized, embedded in NATO's standard planning, in budgeting and force development processes. This is the only way to ensure continuity, avoid disruptive cliffs, and make long-term adaptation predictable and sustainable. I believe we should also consider strengthening NATO's operational autonomy in Europe by mirroring or double-hatting key US-held positions within NATO command structure, so that Europe-specific operations remain possible even without an active participation of the United States. Europe's growing role in collective defense is to be seen as a contribution to NATO's strength and resilience. The upcoming NATO summit in The Hague should send a clear signal of unity and resolve, not only to our adversaries, but also to our own citizens. It is an opportunity to agree on ambitious yet realistic commitments. We need to be swift and coordinated in responding to evolving security needs. It is vital that we invest more in our own defense, but it is equally important that we do not let Ukraine fall. We need to do what we can to help Ukraine becoming more capable of defending itself, negotiating from a position of strength and self-confidence, and making the cost of any future aggression too high for Russia. Yet another task, no less important, lies ahead, and it's Ukraine recovery. The reconstruction of Ukraine is not only a moral imperative, but a strategic one. A strong, democratic, and economically viable Ukraine is essential for long-term stability in Europe. The task requires a continuous engagement, ability to mobilize financial resources, and a clear sense of purpose on our part. Planning and preparation should continue with urgency, ambition, and good coordination. Delaying this effort would only increase the cost in every sense of the word. At the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Italy in July, I will talk more about the need to introduce a modern-day Marshall Plan for Ukraine. First and foremost, investors need to see Ukraine as a place of opportunity, not just of risk. A key path to prosperity lies in deeper integration into European trade. This means making Ukraine more attractive to partners, stabilizing conditions on the ground, and supporting the capacity of Ukrainian institutions to absorb investments and aid. Such an approach would also facilitate return of refugees to Ukraine, because it would give them a clear perspective in rebuilding their lives in their homeland. In this context, integration into the EU remains the strongest guarantee of lasting security and prosperity for Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, I am confident that this year's GLOBSEC Forum will once again offer valuable insights, bold ideas, and frank exchanges, the kind of dialogue we need in these times. I wish you inspiring discussions and renewed resolve. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those great words of introduction at the beginning and for the great speech. Let me touch upon a few points that you opened. In 2 weeks, there will be NATO summit in The Hague, and this is going to be a very important historic summit because it's the first for the new Secretary General Mark Rutte, but also the first in the Trump 2.0 administration. What do you expect from it? Mark Rutte has outlined an ambitious plan to increase defense spending for 5%, 3.5% for direct defense and 1.5% for the broader infrastructure in defense. Is this realistic, and what do you expect? What are your expectations from NATO summit?
On one hand, the expectations are high, especially when it comes to requirement for defense spending. On the other, they are quite limited, and it's mainly because the approach of American administration. And I understand that the Secretary General wants deliberately to limit the scope of the summit to the necessary minimum to avoid any disagreements and disunity. Because we really need to show that we are united in main principles. And main principles means that our commitment to NATO, to Article 5, is still valid, that we don't change our approach to Ukraine, even though there will not be probably strong language in the final declaration on Ukraine, but all previous conclusions from previous summits will remain valid. But the main focus will be really on achieving an agreement on increased defense spending, which is very substantial. And I believe that we will have a joint will to achieve by 32 the minimum 3.5% for hard military expenditures, and another 1.5% of GDP on defense-related expenditures that would include infrastructure, cybersecurity, resilience, education, and all other measures.
You outlined a timeline of 7 years to increase this spending. You said in the year 2032. Do we have so much time when we look at the current situation, because there are no signs of Russia wanting to stop the war? Some of the information coming from European agencies are that Russia is preparing for a major provocation within the next couple of years on the European soil, whether it's Baltics or some other place. Are we prepared for it? Obviously not now, but is this 7 years enough for us to step up? Or do we need to, what are the key priorities that we should focus on in the upcoming years?
I think it is fair to say that we will never be 100% ready for all contingencies. But we should do our best to be ready for facing current threats. That means that first we have to fill all the gaps in capabilities from the previous cycles of NATO defense planning. That is the debt that we still have ahead of us. On top of it, we have now agreed extremely ambitious capability targets for the period 25-29. All of these together will require a really significant increase in defense spending. I'm not sure that all European countries are ready for such an increase, because that would definitely need to look at the structure of our national budgets. It will be quite demanding, but we will have to be very realistic. Russia is now well equipped. It is now experienced from the war. It has an ambition to reconstitute Soviet Union as a global power, and it has expressed a number of requirements to European countries when it comes to new security architecture in Europe. And it would be very naive to believe that President Putin will not be tempted to use the power he has, the power of war economy, to at least try to test NATO unity and resolve. But we will have to face it with the capabilities that will be available at the time. But of course, the more we want to be ready for these potential tests, the more we have to invest in our own defense. And it's not only an issue of money, but also the will. And the will be there if we manage to convince our population about seriousness of the threat, which is not always the case, because even our American allies are from time to time somehow reducing the seriousness of threat from Russia.
So can we say that when we look at all the information, no signs of Russia stopping the war in Ukraine, the attempts to build up their forces in the north, but also the hybrid operations that they are doing in Europe in order to divide Europe. Is Russia at war with Europe?
We still divide the periods of history into peace, crisis, and war. Russia is not doing that. They see the history as a continuous conflict, where only means and intensity changes. So for them, they are actually in a kind of a war with Western democracies. But for them, with regard to the West, they are now using mostly cyber and hybrid tools. But this may change very quickly because, as I say, they really see it as a continuity.
You said that we need to, of course, substantially increase defense spending. We are talking about 5%. Some countries have a fiscal space to do it, but some, as you said, is going to be very difficult to keep the commitment. Do you think the answer is to moving this conversation from the national level, which can be politically very tricky in some countries, to look for space where to increase the defense spending, into European level? Do you see a future of defense spending more in the Eurobonds and on the European level?
It has to start at national level. First, we really have to work with our own population to understand the nature of all of the threats that are around, and to clearly state that security is the foundation of everything. It wouldn't make too much sense if we invest heavily into other areas of social life if we are not able to guarantee the basic security. Not all the countries understand the nature of the threat. We have to be very open in quoting Russian representatives, because quite often they are very open, and we only don't want to listen or to understand what they are saying. And when it comes to Czech Republic, the Russian assessment of Czech Republic, we are a hostile country, we are an enemy, and we are a traitor. So why should we consider Russia as a neutral country to us? They clearly express their will to get back before 1997, where this country was not part of NATO or the EU. They want to reintroduce the sphere of influence and control of Russia over this part of Europe. This is definitely not in our interest, and we have to explain it to our people and to clearly demonstrate that if we want to remain in peace, if we want to preserve a way of life that we have, we really have to invest much more into our security to deter any possible aggression.
I hope this was heard loud and clear also in other neighboring countries, in Bratislava or Budapest as well. Mr. President, you've talked about Marshall Plan for Ukraine, but before, you could elaborate a little bit about that, but before that we need a just and sustainable peace in Ukraine. And it seems that all the attempts that also President Trump has been having are not leading the President Putin to change the course. He's continuing bombing. What do you think Europe can do to force Russia to stop?
Frankly, I don't think that Europe alone has the power to push President Putin to the table. We need other countries, and especially the United States, on board at the same frequency, I would say, in military terminology. Right now, I see the importance of a financial and economic tool probably more important than military tools. We need to keep support of Ukraine, providing military equipment, material, financial support to sustain their defense. But at the same time, to push Russia to the table, we really need much stricter sanctions and measures than up to now. Russia is not in a good economic situation. They are not in a good financial situation. And the only way how to convince President Putin that the time has come to sit to the table is really to push him to the brink of economic collapse. It's not about bringing Russia down, it's simply bringing them to the table and negotiate the future. Because
it seems just the invitation is not enough. Probably you need the force. Mr. President, I think our time is up, unfortunately, because I would have many, many more questions and we could continue in the conversation on many, many topics. But let me really thank you for your extraordinary support, political support for GLOBSEC. Without you, it would be impossible. It's really, it means a lot for us. And also thanks for all of the partners and sponsors who are supporting GLOBSEC. And I have to name them because there are quite a lot of those who supported us. It's the Chess, Zscaler, KNDS, Saab, Microsoft, BMW, and many, many other companies that you will see in the corridor. So thank you once again, and I think we are continuing with the program, so please stay seated. I think the next point in the program is online, President Zelensky.
Thank you.